To capture the spectacle of the great feast, the team would face many challenges, none greater than filming it underwater. It was to lead to some surprising encounters. The crew had 3 weeks in late summer to try to film all the underwater drama. They wanted to find the bait balls of herring that occur here in the hope of discovering exactly how the different predators round them up. Cameramen Shane Moore and David Reichert both have years of experience working here, but even they were in for a big surprise. The key to filming the bait balls was to first find the predators.
We're looking for gulls because the gulls tell us where the diving birds are that are pushing the herring up. So we use our first clue to the good action is just gulls, distant gulls in the air.
A lot of diving birds though, the murres are all here and the auklets. So they're the ones that bring it all together. So they're all here. So we just have to watch it. Something. I think that's some bait right there.
Bait balls don't last long, so the crew had to get to this one quickly. But once in the water, a very careful approach is called for. So as not to panic the birds, David eased closer to the action. And with this sensitive approach, the birds stayed focused on the feeding frenzy, giving David the chance for a rather close-up view. But with so many predators, the fish were getting hammered. The bait ball was gone within minutes. It was an encouraging start, but to get the full sequence they hoped for, the crew would need to film more bait balls. And of course, they weren't the only ones looking for herring.
It's only in the last sort of 5 or 6 or 7 years that the humpback population here in this area has increased, which is really encouraging. Look, you can see one way over there.
It was good to see the whales return, but it posed an intriguing safety concern for Shane.
I think it's extremely unlikely that you could get swallowed by a whale, but if there is a place, this is the place to do it, because they're coming up, they're very motivated to get this ball of fish, and we're right there, and we're just a little thing to a 30-ton whale. The good news is I've seen whales swallow birds and other things, even big fish that they don't like, and they stop and spit it out. So just way, way, way in the back of my mind is the outside possibility that they might swallow David.
You tell me that.
Mindful that there were whales in the area, the crew turned their attention to filming the other stars of the great feast, Stella's sea lions. The plan was to dive amongst the kelp and wait for the sea lions to come to them.
We'll go in and try to find a little eddy in there because the animals are just on that point there.
This coast has some of the strongest tidal currents in the world, essential for fueling the plankton bloom, but not so good if you're swimming against them pushing a bulky camera. The current was getting stronger and the sea lions were nowhere to be seen. David was forced to admit that even the best laid plans don't always work.
That dive was a bit of a mess. You know, the currents come up so fast around here that as soon as we got down there and got set up, current was going like 4 knots, and we were just hanging on to kelp and trying to find like some sort of an eddy or something to work in, but we never did. Finally, we just got washed down.
The team had to wait for the tide to calm down. And it wasn't just the currents that made filming sea lions underwater a bit tricky.
What's really kind of driving us crazy here is all this plankton. The water's very green. Not at all like the tropics where it's, you know, clear and beautiful. But it's also what feeds everything here. That's why we have a great amount of sea lions and all the fish and vertebrates.
On the next slack tide, it was back into the soupy water to try again. They'd have to settle down on the seabed and hope the sea lion's inquisitive nature would draw them in. And this year's youngsters were definitely not camera shy. The sea lions were obviously comfortable getting up close and personal with Shane. Sometimes even a bit too personal. Even this 3-meter-long male seemed to want his share of the limelight. After success with the sea lions, it was time for Shane and David to turn their attention back to the bait balls. The strengthening tides were bringing more fish to the surface, and so, with just a few days left, this was their best chance to get the shots they still needed. The birds were gorging on herring, but at least one fish had a lucky escape.
The herring, of course, in a panic, looked for a place to hide, and they found my camera, and so they'd be up in my viewfinder, and of course they get in between those tubes there, because everything is trying to eat them. The murs and the everything. There he is. Okay, so let's see. This might be the lucky one.
It was the best year for bait balls that David and Shane had ever seen. And they discovered how each of the predators feeds. It's the murs that corral the bait ball against the surface, only ever attacking from beneath, while the gulls just grab what they can. But no one was prepared for what happened next. And David was right there. So, what's it like to find yourself that close to a feeding humpback?
Everything was hitting the ball, and then I could hear the seagulls, of course, they were all around. All of a sudden, boom, it got quiet, and they all lifted off, and I was like, And then sure enough, all the murs dropped out the bottom, and he was right there, right when I got real close. I was like, oh! His mouth was just...
Scary?
Yeah, it was scary.
To capture such astonishing images, and for the very first time, was an unforgettable experience.
Sitting beside that bait ball, and there's that moment of tension, and that whale just came roaring through there, and you know, that's something that's going to stay with me forever.
Shane and David had revealed a dramatic new way that humpback whales take advantage of the great feast.